Hello there, everyone. We are back in San Diego for another one of our videos. This is actually one of our annual traditions. We know we have a lot of you that reach out every year and actually like the Outside the Convention Center guide. This is not going to have all the most breaking news as we're recording this here at the end of June. This is where we talk a little bit about life outside the convention center. We'll still have our Inside the Convention Center guide. We'll have our floor guide. We'll have a number of other videos. We already have our Quick Eats guide and Fifth Street guide and things like that up on our channel. But this one is really talking about kind of what is some of the things to look out for in how the world works at San Diego Comic-Con outside the convention center. Do make sure, of course, to follow along on social media for updates. We're hoping that in this video, there'll be some new things that maybe will help people out, or maybe just reminders. We get a lot of that feedback as well. That said, make sure to hit our comment section after you watch the video if you have other suggestion, tips, things that we might have missed, or maybe we just don't know about that you want to add to the community and the conversation. We greatly appreciate. And then, as always, as we're talking outside Comic-Con, of course, follow along with our friends at Outside Comic-Con, of course, as well as the unofficial blog, San Diego Comic-Con's unofficial blog. All sorts of information in both spots there outside the convention center to fit with this video here. So that said, talking about 2024 San Diego Comic-Con and the outside scene, it's very exciting to be back, of course, but I must admit I do have a little trepidation just in terms of what the year will be like with the way the economy is, particularly in the world of entertainment. We know entertainment has struggled. We talked a little bit about it in this video last year of kind of the streaming venture and how do they make money off of it, and we're seeing a lot of chaos there, a lot of layoffs and things like that. That said, all of these different companies, whether it's streaming, regular straight to TV, or of course the big screen, we know they still need to promote things, and we still do hear a lot of good things about what's going to be happening outside here and inside the convention center. That said, it's an interesting year because it feels like this should be the normal year. The first year since 2019. There's no distancing, of course, no masking regulations, there's no closures, and there's no strike. Like, it seems like each year that Comic-Con, we've had such a weird time since 2020 on. That said, this year should be normal, except, again, very weird time in the world that is entertainment, whether it be at Disney, Paramount, etc., going down the board. That said, what we always see here also, though, is the value of San Diego Comic-Con. And we saw last year, even in a weird year with the strikes, we saw a lot of people invest heavily. For example, Paramount, and we're seeing Paramount double down on that again this year. Not only in the badge, but they're bringing back the lodge, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the Fifth Street. So we do have a lot of hope in what's to come, but I must admit, I don't know that I feel quite as, happy or excited as I did in terms of the prospects of downtime as I did this time last year when it felt like, okay, 2024, finally everything will be normal. I do fear we might have one or two more kind of weird years, but we'll see. That said, we know everybody has a great time at Comic-Con, or at least everybody we talk to has a great time at Comic-Con, no matter what type of year it is, including that special edition year that we had, which was a very different type of attempt at San Diego Comic-Con. So that said, we're going to make our way around. We want to talk about some of the things to expect, not just from the outside components of like businesses coming in, but also just some of the things that maybe like quick places or areas to look for eats, deals, things of that nature. We'll try to hit on a few of those as well. But again, we have a separate guide for the eats side of things, and some of these other things we'll talk about, backpacks, packing, and all of those things. Remember, though, at the end of the day, whether it's outside the convention center or inside the convention center, so much of San Diego Comic-Con is about using that currency of time effectively. That time is like the most valuable asset that you have at San Diego, and hopefully this video will help you have a few ideas about how to spend that as you look at the outside, because when we do talk about going to something like the Petco Interactive Zone in a moment here, it is the currency of time that you spend, that it is a walk here. As we're recording this, we're in the Hall H line here, and to make our way across and go across the bridge and head over there, it takes time, and that's a valuable thing here. So we want to really monitor all of those things and think about it. Using social media can be the best way to do that. We're really big on trying to evaluate the experiences, the swag, the time commitment, all of those things on social media as we go along. So we cannot recommend enough being tuned in there. And particularly, we've talked about this in our live shows this year, Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it, that's still the place where the information moves the most cleanly, the most quickly when it comes to the convention scene. And we've experienced that at WonderCon, at Gallifrey, at theme park events, etc. this year. So we can very much vouch that whether we like the way that platform works or not right now, it is still the place to go for things like outside the convention center information. And of course, following along, whether it's with Parks and Cons, Outside Comic-Con, SDCC blog, etc., there. Now, one of our favorite things about San Diego Comic-Con is the idea of the Comic-Con campus. There's nothing we've ever experienced about it anywhere else that really takes over a city. And in honesty, truth, even something like D23 Expo or Star Wars Celebration that we really love, they barely will make it their way into the adjacent hotels. But here at Comic-Con, it takes over all of the gas lamp area in so many different ways. Now, part of that to note, if you're coming in, particularly if you are coming without a badge for one of the days, or if you're just kind of driving into the area, is that Harbor is going to be closed once again from First to Park. So make sure to follow in. As with so many things, like when we talk about these things, is you want to go ahead and hit, of course, the official Comic-Con International website to look at the exact details to see how it may impact your travels. But it is important to note that there's going to be closed. They will do badge checks there, so you need to maybe make your way around and go back to like we were on the bridge there or things of that nature. But again, although it can be a hassle for some, I know some people aren't as big of fans of the idea of that kind of closure there. It really does help lean into the idea of the campus feeling. And I think it's part of what makes Comic-Con such a fun idea that for so many of us is that we have the con, of course, in the convention center, but then as we make our way out, you're just immersed in it, and you're going to see cosplay everywhere. You're going to see various activations, and of course, you're going to see different companies trying to attack your senses in all different ways as well. All right, so we've made our way over the bridge. We're across here from Petco to an old school spot, the old Petco Interactive Zone, as many of us old school fans call it. The thing about the Petco Interactive Zone, and we always use that as kind of a talking point, because it's one spot that we always know something's going to make its way over here, and it's a good spot. We don't know what's going to pop up everywhere around Comic-Con, but it's just kind of a good spot to talk generally about the various offsite stuff. So one thing, make sure to know the hours. A lot of times the hours can be shorter than what you might anticipate. Also, various activations, whether it's in the Petco area here or anywhere else in the park, may change. I mean, last year I think it was the Lanford one that wasn't open on Sunday. Maybe it wasn't Saturday too. I just remember it was greatly reduced from what we would have thought a Comic-Con activation might be. So make sure to be aware of those types of things. Also, again, we just talked about a few minutes ago the time commitment, but this is a great one because this one in particular attracts big crowds, we know, on Saturdays and Sundays. Not that any don't, but it just always feels like this is a place that everybody knows to check in. And so a lot of people come down to the area that maybe work Thursday and Friday. Maybe they're not Comic-Con attendees and they make their way down. So ideally hitting the activations on Thursdays or Fridays are usually a little bit more ideal because it's usually a little bit easier. That said, there's not many days that are like light when it comes to these offsites. And so your mileage may vary. And again, it's why social media can be so important to get like kind of reports, reviews, etc. for them. The thing is obviously the longer you wait to get those reviews, the more people hear something's amazing, the busier it gets, the more challenging it gets, etc. So you have to kind of weigh that in as well. Now, the other thing about these is much like we talk about the convention center is these activations are run by people that are not used to oftentimes doing activations, meaning they're temporary employees that are running things for the weekend. They have other jobs normally Monday through Friday and they do the best they can with it. And they oftentimes do great jobs, but you have to kind of weigh that in as you're considering what you're doing with these activations, of just kind of making sure to have some grace for them and be kind of chill, if as chill as you can be with what they are trying to do. One thing to note on badges is most offsite activation badges are not required, but it's always good to have them on you because you don't know. So we've been at activations where they have required them, again, rare. We've also had some where they give priority or that they'll give some extra little kind of, you know, swag or things like that. So just something to note there. A lot of times we don't know those things going back to like the differing in personnel. Sometimes that can even change day to day as people are in charge and things like that. So again, Comic-Con is a wonderful place to be, but it is all very temporary. And as a result, it all has temporary employees that do the best they can with the event in those hours that they are working there. The last thing in terms of Petco, you know, the mystery of what shows up there, like with any of these activations, like right now as we're recording this end of June, we know almost nothing about this area. We know the Hello Kitty truck is coming. We know that Oatmeal is coming and doing a thing in here, but that's all we know. So it's kind of the fun of the campus is things are going to, you know, pop in there that we don't know about. But again, it's also why as we're going along, like for us right now, those two things alone wouldn't pull us from the convention center to come over. But all of a sudden they add other things there. They have some Star Trek thing. They have some, I don't know, D23 type thing. There might be other things that do pull us over there. So again, follow along on social media to try to get an idea of what these places are. We will be in the gas lamp swarming, you know, the weeks leading up to it as builds are going on to try to share with you what is coming and what the size of it. We're across the way, there was a Watchman when they were, you know, really promoting that. And it was this offsite activation thing in the Petco Park area. And we thought, this is going to be amazing. And then we came out to do it and it was like the little booth and it took a couple quick pictures and it was so not very amazing or memorable. I mean, it was a fun little thing, but it wasn't necessarily worth us taking a lot of time from the convention center. So again, we'll follow and try to give you an idea of the scope of these things in the days leading up to Comic-Con, but make sure to always remember to use your time as that currency. All right, so on the Comic-Con campus, I think 5th Street is kind of main street here. And so because of that, each year we do like a deep dive on 5th Street. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. We did it last year and again this year. I'm sorry, this year being probably the most important though, because it's all up to date, because there is literally construction going on, like it's Toscana right now for some sort of new restaurant there. There's additional seating added. You've got the bollards in place here that kind of block things off to make it a closed area. So as we kind of look around here, you've got the additional seating, and the idea is that this is kind of like a parkway median area throughout the year, but obviously it works really well for Comic-Con. And so 5th Street, we'll talk a little bit more about what's down there. We did want to point out the lodge makes its return here on 5th. Great reviews last year. We talk a little bit more about it in the live on our channel, our 5th Street tour, if you want to check that as well. But lots of good stuff down here. The general rule though, the further down you go, the less busy it gets usually. So something just to consider. As we make our way a little bit further down 5th Street here, we find that Island is kind of a line there where a lot of the busyness ends. I don't want to say these restaurants don't still get busy, but we have many a time been in this area and like stopped to use the ATM. By the way, there's a Bank of America ATM right there if you need it. And as we made our way across, we've been able to get like pizza, barbecue, all sorts of stuff down here in like 5-10 minutes. So, you know, it's up to you whether you want to make this far of a walk, but we do find Island to kind of be a line there where it feels like a lot of people aren't willing. Then if they're willing to go this far, as they get down to Ghirardelli, that's kind of that next line down there. So something to consider there if you're up for, you know, putting some miles on the feet there as you're kind of walking out here. We did, as I said earlier, do a deep dive into 5th. If you want to look at all sorts of recommendations, you can find that on our playlist. All right, we've made our way over here to the Children's Museum, the park area here that is finally open. You can see all the beautiful water here. You can see the park behind us there, lots of play area. We'll see how much of it, if any, comes to play for Comic-Con. We did want to point out, I know we had people comment when we posted in social back in December of like what a great backdrop and kind of how this all looks for cosplay shots. So if you are a cosplayer and you take some cool shots here, make sure to tag us and we'll try to share those there. But also down this area, we've got over a Ralph's not too far from here on G Street. We've got the Marriott, of course, which ends up playing a big part of Comic-Con. It's been a part of gaming, of course, the fulfillment room, of merchandise has shown up there. We've played some fantastically fun pinball on a night. Was it last year, the year before? So fun there too. The biggest thing though is I'm just hoping that we see more of the Comic-Con activity coming back across the street in this area, whether it's closing down the park and making it some amusement park or whatever it is. Still, one of my favorite things about this area was coming over and seeing the Castle Rock car kind of crash into things there. It's just a beautiful drag up here. It's nice to see all the water back over here as well. So a fun spot, but also some kind of relevance here maybe for the Comic-Con time of year. One of the things also relevant here is make sure if you are coming in the trolley down this area, this is the convention center stop right here. I know we've posted this on social, so if you follow along with us, but the convention center stop is going to drop you off here before Hall A. So if you're looking for the ADA entrance or Marriott or any of those types of things, this is the perfect place to get off. But we've had a lot of people tell us, well, I want to get in the everything else line. I want to get in the Hall H line. In that case, you actually want to get up at the gas lamp quarter stop. It'll save a lot of steps if you make your way down that way on the MTS and get off there and then walk right across the street. All right, we're out here in front of the Hilton Bayfront. It's really one of our favorite parts of Comic-Con. This area has always been used for fun things almost as long as we've been coming to San Diego Comic-Con. A lot of attendees have gotten used to it being used for FX, which we'll see if it's here or not. But either way, this is going to be a big spot of activity, we would imagine, here. Now, one thing we pointed out, if you didn't watch our Quick Eats video, but just the Hilton Bayfront, which is behind the camera as we're recording this, is really good for the most part in terms of food, drink options, a lot of quick options there, sweet things is there. So we go into a deeper dive of that of our Quick Eats guide, but just something we want to point out is we're in this location because likely, whether we have Adult Swim back here, whether we have Animayhem, you know, with Hulu, we've had some really great offsites show up in this area. Now, as we look at the Bay, I mean, one, it's just always awesome, especially if you're not from the San Diego area, which we are not. We drive a couple hours down to come here, just always taking in the water. It's something every time we're here at Comic-Con, we take time just to kind of like, man, this is beautiful. Okay, now back to the pop culture madness. But it's also super beautiful when you've got something like the IMDb boat over there or Voodoo Ranger there. these various other things that pop up. One year we saw Red Baron Snoopy flying around out in the water there. So it's just a fun spot to kind of take in. Another part of this area that sometimes becomes an autograph hunting spot. We know a lot of people will hang out and wait for celebs to kind of make their way in. Last year, not a thing, obviously, with the strikes, but this year that may be back. We know a lot of people that have actually gotten a lot of great photos and autographs kind of hanging in this area as people transition into the convention center. So a few things to kind of think about there. As we kind of are coming into the end of the video here, just again, we want to stress thinking big picture when it comes to San Diego Comic-Con. There's no one that can do everything at Comic-Con. It's impossible. That's part of the great fun and adventure of it all, so try to enjoy it. We do a lot of tips on our live shows as well as our social media. One thing just want to stress here with the outside one as we talk about is, again, making sure to monitor your pace. You know, when it comes to sleep and things like that, some people do much better with lack of sleep than others. Some people need more sleep. Whatever you need to have a great Comic-Con, hopefully you know that coming into the event and you can do that, and make sure to articulate that, communicate that with those people in your group. You know, it can be a real contrast there if you're somebody that only needs an hour of sleep a night and you'll be fine, and someone else needs that 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever it might be. What we always say about everything we do as we come into San Diego Comic-Con is it's just too much work to do this event to not enjoy it when you're here. So whatever you need to do to end the weekend feeling like that was an awesome, fantastic time, make sure to do that in terms of taking care of your health and being good with all that. For those of you that are Parks and Cons crew members, we did want to remind we are going to be doing a tour of the off-site activations and just all the outside convention center on preview night morning, once again, like we did last year. So make sure, head over to Mighty Networks. We'll be having a sign up there. We need to know in advance who's going to be joining us on that tour. Again, that's going to be preview night morning for our Patreon supporters there on the Parks and Cons crew. We thank all of you that have supported. We also thank everybody that's supporting our 10th anniversary event, Storm Chasing. We've been covering Comic-Con for longer than that, but Parks and Cons is 10 years old this year. We have our event coming up and we're excited about it. And so please, please, please continue to support us in these years to come as we have lots of Comic-Con coverage to come in the hopefully decades ahead of us. So with that said, we are wrapping up here from San Diego Comic-Con campus, soon to be at least. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.